Contribute to the #PuckStrong movement for mental health in hockey athletes by watching the video, tweeting the hashtag, and sharing your stories on the website. This was a really interesting question proposed on the 31 Thoughts podcast earlier this week. And the question was basically something super simple. It's probably been presented in many forms throughout the past 10, 20 years worth of hockey history. And that question right here is, Jack Hughes or Rasmus Dahlin? Assume they're the same age. Assume they're going in the same draft, and they're both projected to have the same amount of potential that they have today. Who goes first overall? And this is a really interesting question, because throughout the years, in the 2016 draft, I remember in particular, Austin Matthews was the guy that a lot of analysts were saying if he was born just a few weeks earlier, and he was eligible for the 2015 draft, he would have gone second overall, ahead of Jack Eichel, and before Connor McDavid. McDavid obviously is probably the only exception to this series of questions, as he will go first overall in basically every single draft that you put him up against, but this one's kind of an interesting one. Dahlin or Hughes? Now, in terms of the two players, I've talked about Dahlin a ton before. I've made individual videos talking about Dahlin and his potential impact for the Vancouver Canucks, but other than that, Dahlin hasn't really been a topic too much of my channel here, because obviously Dahlin, everybody's talking about Dahlin. By now, you probably already know how good he is. Jack Hughes, on the other hand, I haven't covered him either, and probably the reason for that is because he's going to go next year. In Vancouver, in the 2019 NHL entry draft, I've been saving a lot of material for that draft to be presented to you guys at a later date. In regards to draft prospects in general, though, I've been talking a lot about even younger guys, Lafreniere, Byfield, the Wahlgren twins, but not too much about the high-profile 2019 guys. That will come a little bit later into this year. But Jack Hughes is a player who definitely has an incredibly high ceiling. In my opinion, he is undisputably a franchise player. And he's not generational. I don't want to say that. He is above franchise, below generational, in that limbo, sort of between Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. That's where I would put Jack Hughes. If I wanted to put a cap on his skill level, there's a pretty big comparison going around that he's basically Patrick Kane, but a center. And that's a comparison that has been made before. I remember in particular, when Mitch Marner was drafted, he was said to be a Patrick Kane light. But, of course, Jack Hughes is projected to be a Patrick Kane. So that, of course, is very high praise. But what exactly is the outcome here? Jack Hughes or Rasmus Dahlin? Would you rather have a Victor Hedman, who is better than Hedman, or a Patrick Kane center? That's basically the ceiling of both of these guys. Assuming they both reach their fullest potentials, Rasmus Dahlin is basically a Hedman-level defender with better defensive skills than Hedman, and the offensive capabilities of an Erik Karlsson minus a few steps. I don't think Dahlin has that Erik Karlsson offensive capabilities, but he certainly has the Hedman defense and two-way game. But Jack Hughes is a center who's got everything going for him. He's projected to be better than Austin Matthews. In fact, he's got the numbers for it. Just taking a look at this most recent season on the U.S. Development Program's under-18 team. This is the under-18 team, not the under-17 team wherein Jack Hughes' age range fits into. He was playing a full year ahead. For the U.S. under-18 team in this past season, the points leader was Oliver Wahlstrom, who grabbed himself 94 points in 62 games. Third place was Jack Hughes, 68 points in 36 games. He dominated this team in points by game by far. He had himself a 1.89 points per game on the U18 team, whereas Oliver Wahlstrom had a 1.52. Again, this is a year removed from Jack Hughes' age range. He is playing in a better league than he's supposed to be. He's playing in the same league as Farabee, Wahlstrom, Wise, all these other 2018 draft-eligible prospects, and he's boasting better numbers, by far, than every single one of them. If Jack Hughes was drafted this year, he would most likely be either first or second, but he's getting drafted next year, which provides an entire other year of layers of development, progress, and skills to go alongside of his game. So him or Dahlin? One or two? Personally, I think that if you were to ask the average NHL team, they would say Jack Hughes. I think that Hughes, as a franchise-altering center number one guy who's able to get upwards of 100 points in a season, I think he's the guy that an average NHL team would take, just because of how valuable number one centers are. But if you asked specific teams, and in particular teams like, the Vancouver Canucks, or the Toronto Maple Leafs, or the Oilers, or the Sabres, I think they would say Dahlin. Because any team that already has a center will not need a Jack Hughes more than they need a Dahlin. And I think that's very easy to understand here, but it does fall on whatever team is drafting here. Because some teams got really great defenders. Erik Karlsson, Drew Doughty, Victor Hedman. Some of these teams, of course, they have really good centers as well, but what sounds a little bit more appealing? Erik Karlsson feeding the puck up to Jack Hughes for breakaways, or Erik Karlsson and Dahlin cycling it 1-2 on the power play. I think that Jack Hughes scenario kind of pops out to you a little bit more than the Dahlin scenario does. So obviously it depends on the team. But to me, I would be picking Jack Hughes first. It's very traditional, it's a very normalized local idea here, picking Jack Hughes number one overall instead of Rasmus Dahlin, but at the same time, Dahlin is literally a one-in-a-kind defenseman. He's a guy that hasn't come around in a very, very long time, arguably since Potvin. And the fact that he's a number one overall defenseman with the offensive hype, defensive hype, two-way hype, overall just potential of being better than Victor Hedman, sort of on an Erik Karlsson level, this is obviously a special player. And the Buffalo Sabres, that Rasmus pairing is going to be great for them for the next 10, 15 years. And all of us hockey fans are just really blessed to have all these amazing talents coming out of the draft. Just going back to 2015, McDavid and Eichel, okay, franchise guy and a generational guy. Going over to 2016, Austin Matthews, Patrick Laine, two franchise guys right there. 2017, Nolan Patrick is an elite guy, so is Hischier, but Pettersson, arguably a franchise guy. Middlestad could be sort of in that same boat as well. And in 2018, Dahlin, franchise, yes. 2019, Jack Hughes, franchise, yes. 2020, Lafreniere, Byfield, arguably both franchises, yes. Holtz could be described as that as well. We have so many incredible talents coming into our drafts, and I can't wait to remake this video in a year asking, okay, who would be first overall, Lafreniere or Jack Hughes? Because they're both really good players, and yeah, I know, you get the point. But this one's a little bit different. Two different positional needs are at stake here, defense, center, both with incredibly high ceilings, and it's a tough decision. It's a really tough decision, which is why I'm leaving this open for debate. Obviously, I'm not the one who thought of this. This was the 31 Thoughts podcast. Friedman and Marek, two obviously fantastic hockey minds coming together, talking about this stuff, and really inciting all of this creative discussion amongst the fans. And I am just one of those fans who's protruding and reinstating that discussion amongst YouTube. So what do you guys think? Obviously, I already stated my opinion. It depends on the team. If it's just the average NHL team, I think Jack Hughes goes first overall. But if it's a team with a specific need for defense and a team that specifically has already a great forward core, Dahlin's going first. But obviously, if you guys think of it from the perspectives of your own teams, things get really interesting as well. So if you guys want to talk about that down there in the comments below, you can say something like, yo, I'm a Dallas Stars fan, we already got ourselves a good forward core, Ben Sagan, Heiskanen's already really good too, but I personally believe that we would be better off drafting X because, you know, they fit well into our system in this way. Obviously, as a Vancouver Canucks fan, I can sit here and say, yes, Dahlin 100%, because Juolevi by himself isn't cutting it. Pettersson and Besser, already a great forward core there, just in those two players, and we got a whole bunch of other great forwards too in the pipeline. It's just that defense needs work. So, who exactly is it? Dahlin or Hughes? Hope you guys enjoyed this video for Boston National Sign Gaming. I'll probably make some more videos throughout the year of Jack Hughes, Peyton Krebs, who else is there? Kirby Dack as well. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. My apologies if I'm not. And bye.